I've done the things that society's asked of me. I've had the success. I've done what I felt like I was supposed to do in life, and I'm not feeling the joy. I'm not feeling the fulfillment. What do I do now? I ended up leaving New York, leaving my marriage, leaving a company I had founded, and really had never been in that place before. Just really like a blank canvas. Felt quite lost, and from that got inspired to how do we help people in this place, and what would be the impact if we could support powerful leaders, people that had the ability to be high performers in whatever areas of their life, and allow them to just really connect in a much deeper way to their own mission and purpose. Most of our leaders right now is a lot based on fear. I think the difference is really leading with love and leading with the heart. That's really the only true thing to lead with.
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Brendan, for being here. Man, really excited for our conversation. You're such an inspiration, from everything that you've done, your earlier success in tech and then Miami Made. That's how I met you. Yeah. Miami Made is still around. I'm still a member, a great, thriving organization. And then now you're doing cool work and with One Heart, which we're definitely going to dive into. And so welcome to the show. Excited for you to be here. And maybe a way for us to start is for you, give a little introduction to someone. What would you like for people to know as a reference, who are you? What's important for people to know?
All right. Well, who am I? That's starting with the deep stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to be here and be able to do this. I know we've been talking about it for a while. My focus right now is on One Heart from a work and really life mission standpoint, which is really a organization that is focused on elevating leaders, and with the goal of if our leaders consciousness expands, if their hearts expand, if what they're doing in the world expands, then that's going to have a lot of ripple effects in the world. And we do that largely via our 8-week program, which includes a 1-week retreat in Costa Rica, which has 3 ayahuasca ceremonies, in addition to many other modalities and workshops, and just a really comprehensive program that we've developed from start to finish. We're approaching we'll have our 25th journey at the end of the year.
Amazing.
This year.
So for people to understand, what kind of people tend to go? Who are the participants? What kind of caliber of people go?
Yeah, it's a mix of, what we really focus on is heart-centered leadership. That has meant, we've had billionaires join us. We've had TV stars. We've had big influencers. We've had a lot of, startup folks, coaches, people in the medical field, directors, creatives. It's really across the board. I think what really aligns is we're looking for people that have the opportunity and desire to have an oversized impact in the world in some way.
Mm-hmm. Would you mind sharing maybe your journey of coming from, being a player, performance was your metric, how effective and efficient you are in your job in tech world, and then switching, there's big event that kind of made you transition into a completely new way of living. So maybe share that journey. Yeah,
absolutely. I call myself a recovering type A and aspiring type B, BE. And so that's kind of been my focus in, how do we live in the present world, which is where we are every day. And I think, I very much was a part of that type A lifestyle, living in New York. I literally was walking faster than everyone on the streets and, hated to be passed, moving fast, doing a million things, living that life and building companies in New York, and didn't really question it for quite some time. And then kind of in my mid-30s, we sold a company, and then right after I spun off another company. I raised venture capital from a prominent West Coast VC, built that up to about 100 employees in a few years, and then the investors came knocking and were like, want to raise more money. And there was a moment when my heart just sank. It's just like, I can't do this. Like, I don't want to be in this for, X number more years. Was kind of looking at turning 40 down the road and what I wanted to do with my life. Was burnt out, had worked extremely hard, 60, 80 hours a week for pretty much my whole career. No breaks, just from one thing to the next, straight through. And, they kept coming to me, asking me to raise money. I kept saying no. And then at one point they came and asked me to step down as CEO from the company that I had founded. And that really set me off on my journey. There's other things in my life that were kind of moving their way out as well, as far as a previous marriage. I had loved living in New York, didn't know where else I could live, and it just started kind of not feeling like the right place for me anymore, and things started shifting. And so I ended up leaving New York, leaving my marriage, leaving the company I had founded, and really had never been in that place before. Just really like a blank canvas, and felt quite lost. I ended up writing I did a bunch of travels. I experienced a lot of different modalities. I did coaching certification programs. I traveled in Southeast Asia, yoga meditation retreats, did ayahuasca, which really kind of started off a lot of my journey of really going outside of my own mind and trying to figure everything out and moving it into my heart. And had, on this journey, did some more plant medicine, bunch of other programs. And when I got back, I really had, kind of shifted a lot of things in my life after like a few years, and didn't really know how to explain that to the people around me in my life. And so I wrote this article called Lost on Purpose, and had never written anything personal. Had no followers on Medium, and I posted it and got tens of thousands of people who had read it, and many of them writing in the comments or writing me saying, this is my story. And that's really how One Heart got founded. Because I had all these people writing me, and they were really saying, I've done the things that society's asked of me. I've had the success. I've done what I felt like I was supposed to do in life, and I'm not feeling the joy. I'm not feeling the fulfillment. What do I do now? And so from that, just really got inspired to, like, how do we help, people in this place? And what would be the impact if, like, we could, really support powerful leaders, people that had the ability to be high performers in whatever areas of their life, and allow them to just really connect in a much deeper way to their own mission and purpose. And that's how we ended up starting One Heart.
Amazing, yeah. Over time, through that transition, would you say your definition of what is a real leader, the definition of a leader changed somehow, or maybe define what's a leader, a true leader is?
Yeah, that's a good question. It definitely evolved and expanded, for sure. I think there's certain, obviously, principles of leadership that you need either way, which I think, in the startup world in New York, it was always like, you need a big vision that people will follow. You need to be inspiring and passionate. You need to be able to, raise money. Which goes along with those things. You need to be able to find good people and put them in the right spots. And those were things I was always, pretty good at, especially finding good people and putting them in the right spots and building really strong cultures and people around me. However, what I was doing it for, just didn't connect with me, and especially anymore. We're helping big companies sell unhealthy, unneeded products, and that just got to a point where I just couldn't do that anymore. And so I think in heart-centered leadership and and how we look at it is there's a level of consciousness to it. There's a level of awareness. I think a lot of people in the world are just kind of putting their blinders up. A lot of the products, most of the things out there right now are causing more harm than good. A lot of things to our health and to our world that are not positive. And, most people are going to work every day, doing those things either knowingly or unknowing. And so I think, having heart-centered leadership is really just really starting to think about the world as these are your children. These are the people that you love most. Yeah. And, what do you want to put out into the world? What is actually meaningful for you? Yeah. What connects to your heart and soul, and what also, does good for others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was also kind of a similar question, but maybe a little bit more expensive. Is what is the big delta between the leaders of the past and the leaders of the future that you inspired by, and the leaders that you promote, the leader you're also maybe in the process of becoming yourself?
Question. I think most of our leaders, especially when you get into politics and really corporate as well, leadership right now is a lot based on fear. So we lead by fear. At work, it could be losing your job. It could be not getting the promotion. It could be not being able to feed your family. It could be, looking bad or going against the company and getting blackballed or whatever the case may be, for whistleblowers and people like that.
Yep.
Obviously in government, there's all types of fear that we're faced with, and that's a way of controlling the population. And so I think the move in leadership, and I see this shifting a lot, with the people that come on our retreats, with people that have come into my orbit. As you know, Miami Made, we've brought a lot of really beautiful people together. And I think the difference is really leading with love and leading with the heart. And I think for some that may still sound, cheesy and corny. However, that's really the only true thing to lead with. Otherwise we're just manipulating people to, via fear to do what we want them to do. And so the other opportunity is to truly lead people, have them come with you, because, they feel your heart. They, admire what you're doing. They're inspired by the mission, and they believe in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, this is the problem that you guys are solving. What is the most effective way of transforming the leaders of kind of the past or current leaders who lead by fear or are being pushed by fear into the future, but being more like pulled by love towards everything, toward themselves and others? What is the most effective way to convert leaders at scale like that?
Yeah. Our program's pretty damn good. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of another answer, but I think.
But no, tell me more about why is it how is this so effective? What have you seen? What's really working, and why is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the first part is the person needs to have some sort of calling.
Yeah.
When we're talking about plant medicine and ayahuasca in particular, there's usually a calling. There's something that wakens within you, and I know there's something more. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly how to get to it, but it feels like this is the next step, and people will start hearing about ayahuasca. It's from several different places. A lot of people will start hearing about One Heart in different places, or may have heard about it 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden it becomes relevant in their life for some reason. So I think the first is that you have to answer some sort of calling. There has to be either a pain point or a deep desire to not continue, the path that you're on. Mm-hmm. And so I think it starts there. And then, I think the tools that support and that we really build into a lot of our programs as well. One is just, kind of opening your mind to other perspectives. Yep. There are different ways to do that. I think ayahuasca happens to be a particularly effective one.
Right? Yeah.
But allowing yourself to see different perspectives. We've gone through our lives with these blinders on, and what these medicines do is they start to peel those back. So the things you start to see are always there. However, you're now able to realize it. And most people are stuck in the same ruts because they have these fears or these limiting beliefs or these stories about society that came from their parents or whoever, and they can't get outside of those. So once we start to remove those, there's this whole other world that exists. And so that's a huge piece of it, because things start to find those people. The right people start to find those people, the right opportunities. and you can't see it before. And that's why it's so challenging, because, you want to, I know I did. I wanted to have a spreadsheet and analytics and figure out exactly what I was doing before I did it. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way for finding the love of our lives. It doesn't work that way for finding meaningful work. We have to jump into something. We have to follow, our truth somewhere, our passion, and, follow some nugget of something. And then things start to open up. And, most of the world is afraid to do that. So that's a big piece of it. Community is a huge piece of it. So community is a huge part of One Heart, and something that is kind of a core reason that people, join us versus maybe some other programs out there. We focused on that from day one. These plant medicines were done as in tribes, in the ancient days, for thousands of years. So you would sit with your tribe, life would be an integration. You'd be with your tribe, you would support each other. And with the modernization of these medicines, it's like, okay, I'll, go into a yoga studio in Brooklyn like I did for my first time, or you pop down to Peru on a solo mission and you come back and you have no support and you just kind of went through this huge thing and it's beautiful, but you don't have this community to support you moving forward. So I think the community aspect is huge, because the people that meet each other on One Heart, you start to see, that there's these different ways of living, and and you start to be recognized for, a truer version of yourself. And, you start to be seen, for your own vulnerability and, and accepted in ways that allow you to bring that forth. And so that's a really huge, huge piece of it as well.
Yeah. The community cultivation. What do you guys do? What are some techniques and practices that been very effective at building the community?
Yeah. I think with everything, it's the intentionality. So it starts with there's just so much intention. I mean, I think you experienced a bit of it with Miami Made. I mean, it was in some ways a beta for One Heart, but just even with Miami Made, we had people take their shoes off, when they came, and they, it felt like home, and we would do them early in the morning. So it kind of, people that really wanted to be there come, so there's little intentionalities with everything that end up making a big difference. I would say with One Heart, some of the things that, one, we have an 8-week program, so we get to know each other before the journey. We have WhatsApp channels, we have what we call an elevation leader program, so we break people into smaller groups, and we have alumni come back and support and lead smaller groups. And so by the time we even, get on the bus together to the retreat center, people are already pretty close, and then we actually run programming on the bus and connect everyone to each other. And so there's a lot of intentionality to it. On the journey itself and throughout, vulnerability is what really builds community and relationships. So, really creating situations where people can be comfortable being vulnerable and being known. And, people are on these journeys and are like, I'm closer to these people than my family or friends I've had my whole life. And it's because they've never even shared the things that they share, on this journey with people prior. And so that really creates the commonality and the connection. And then we have a 5-week integration program after, so we all stay together and we support each other, and we actually have ongoing stuff even beyond that we offer for free to our community, like monthly virtual community gatherings, and we have local groups in 12 different markets across the U.S. that meet up once a month.
Have you found there's like an optimal size for the group that makes the connection the strongest? Yeah, I don't know.
Our groups are typically around 45 people with about 10 of that is our staff. And sometimes it can sound a little large, but it really is, in my view, pretty optimal in that, like, we all know each other. We get to know everyone on the journey. And then there's enough people there that you really get to meet, have options to meet people maybe closer to where you live, or, in your field of interest, or that shares, more commonalities. So, we really love that size. It kind of just feels good for us, obviously, and then we break the group down into smaller groups, and there's other ways of connecting. Obviously, if you, do a 10-person group, you'll connect deeper potentially or more with those people, but there'll also be, less people that maybe you connect, you have as much commonality with, or
I guess it matters if you have enough time to like break up into smaller groups and reconnect them. And so having a bigger group only works if you have enough time with everyone in different situations and different.
Yeah, and it goes to the intentionality again. It's just how things are set up, and we also break up in dyads, and there's a lot of activities that we do that are, people are connecting with new people or getting together with each other, and so yeah, for us it works really well, and people leave really knowing every person there.
Yeah, I wanted to get your perspective on the future of so there's the whole notion of decentralization of big entities. Of financial entities, one of the biggest example that everyone knows, like decentralized finance or like Bitcoin is decentralizing things. But I also see that trend happens in other parts of human kind of organizational structures, and technology playing a big piece, let's say AI now, taking care of a lot of the kind of like operational things. And maybe we're not there yet, but I maybe see the future in which there are much smaller groups and there are a lot more of them versus one big organization, and it's kind of like a top-down approach to doing things.
Are you talking about companies or?
Yeah, companies, like leaders usually have people that they lead, right? And I thought about that, and I feel like the future is we have more leaders and they're leading less people. How do you see that future?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that exactly. I mean, I think what's more natural, I think we've gone to like a less natural state in these mega corporate. I mean, we're it's really greed and using fear and power, to create these gigantic entities that are solely based on raising profits. So if we create governance, like, currently the board of directors of any publicly traded company, their obligation and duty is to raise profits. But if we start to create a world where there's other reasons for business and other structures, I mean, most companies don't have to be mega corporations, and obviously with AI and all that too. But if you're creating something that just is really valuable and supports your family and supports you and creates a nice business, it's kind of just moving back to where things used to be.
Right.
And the same goes with communities that we live in. We've created these mega communities, and there's really no community left. Whereas it used to be these little towns and these cities, and these little towns that people would know each other and support each other, and you'd have obligations and connections with the people around you. So I think in many ways, I mean, I moved to Costa Rica. In many ways, like that's what I'm looking for, and in building just a smaller sense of just create an environment around me that where that small community feel can just evolve and kind of create
for sure
around you.
And so the future of communities, you see small, or like not even just communities, even cities. Do you see both trends continuing? Bigger cities becoming bigger, and we have more local communities that are more like decentralized, more autonomous, or the cities become less important because now we don't have to be in cities to get jobs.
Yeah, truthfully, I don't know where where it'll head. I mean, I imagine it will. The polarity will continue, and I think I was very attracted to New York for a while. I thought I'd be there, and then I keep moving further, and further outside of that, and wanting something different. And I think that's certainly happening. There's a lot of people leaving the States or creating, looking for smaller towns and building communities, within the U.S. Yep. So that draw was never really there before. It was just kind of, as we were growing up, it was just like the suburban sprawl and the big cities and people moving to the suburbs. And so I think society's adjusting based on the needs of individuals. But it does feel, to me at least, like there's not as much lure to the big cities as when for me it was like, wow, going to New York, and I was also like in advertising, and just the heart of where everything was happening was so big. And we have a lot of young people that come on our journeys, and they're already on their on their path in some way.
Yeah,
and,
right.
you know, I think they're thinking they're not as interested in going to the bars all weekend and
Sure.
working 80 hours a week, like the life that I thought I was supposed to live. So, things are shifting.
Yeah,
I think we have so many factors and,
for sure, yeah.
that are, kind of coming onto society now that, probably things will go a lot of different directions.
Even around you where you live in Costa Rica now, do you see more people going there and forming communities, or it's always kind of been the same and there's not a whole lot of change that's happening?
No, I mean, there's a lot of people, and I'm in a lot of groups too, of people like building communities and wanting to create conscious communities and, you know, buy land and, you know, either something small with their family and friends, and multi-generational communities or eco villages or, you know, different things. And so, yeah, I think there is, you know, I think that's a new thing. I don't know how much it really, you know, didn't exist probably too much in the last, you know, 10 years ago. So now it's, you know, at least my world kind of mainstream and something that a lot of people are, you know, are looking into. So I think, you know, for me, it's like, it's taking our own life into our hands and like creating, you know, I want to, you know, be closer, if not, you know, actually growing my own food and, you know, my own land and water sources and have, you know, get closer and closer to that, versus, you know, have everything delivered on Amazon and Uber Eats, which was very convenient for me for quite some time. But I think especially as I've had my daughter recently and started thinking about her world, you know, where that is headed, you know, what's pulled me more and more is just like what's natural and true.
Yeah, I definitely would love to touch on the topic of fatherhood and parenthood. Kind of closing the loop on the future of living. Where does technology play a role? Like, do you see, let's say even for yourself, do you see using less and less of it? And as you mentioned about farming, doing it some of it yourself. Do you see yourself at all using, I don't know, like, what if it is a world in which we have some kind of like local but semi-automated farming that is as healthy in the ground, but maybe there's robotics that are taking care of it, and humans can spend more time their community with their people and things like that. So technology is kind of like facilitating the background operation of things, so humans can spend more time doing human things.
Yeah, I think there's just going to be more and more diversity of possibilities. You know, obviously, you know, AI and technology is going to, you know, make much of what we do, you know, unneeded. You know, we could have Tesla robots, you know, going around, and we could sit on our couch and, you know, yell out commands and probably have everything we need brought to us. And that's some people's version of progress. I think in many ways what I'm feeling into is progress is kind of going back, you know, a bit. And what is, what feels in alignment to me is getting deeper and deeper into nature and what is natural. I think we've created and overcreated a lot of products and a lot of things for our convenience, to make money. And many of them are unhealthy and, you know, in different ways, whether it's social media and the way we consume media, to our whole food system, which is, I think 70% of what people are eating are highly processed foods, which is extremely unhealthy in, you know, many cases, and has next to no nutrients. So we've really just built out a lot of things based on convenience. And so it's hard to not get stuck in that trap. And I think the other way to go is, you know, is to, you know, slow down a little bit, say convenience is not my focus. You know, I'm really looking to just live this life, and there's beautiful things that have been bestowed on us by nature. And how do we, you know, get back to that and enjoy that versus, utilize technology to remove us from what and gives us more time to do what? Play video games? You know, like what are we aiming?
Right. Yeah, I have a potential theory, not backed up by necessarily a research or just the way kind of I see it is humans been spending over time less and less doing physical things. Like before, it was mainly just before we became humans, we were all just in the physical reality, just grabbing things, throwing things, climbing trees and things. Mm-hmm. But then as our brain evolved over time, we started navigating a new dimension, this idea space, this mental domain. And over time, we've been spending more and more time in those domains, while science and technology have been helping us to have more control over physical reality so that we don't have to live in fear, let's say, of a tiger or some kind of danger coming your way. So we've been figuring out ways how to make the 3D reality as controllable, as predictable, as convenient as we can, so that we can, spend even more time and not. I don't think humans were doing it consciously. This is has been a pull towards the state in which we are spending more time in this ethereal domains.
Right.
And maybe evolutionary, this is the trajectory of us becoming some kind of like light beings who are escaping the 3D dimension. What do you thought?
Yeah. Well, I think the issue I have, I guess, is that like we are, as you said, our minds are being put to work, even though we may be physically safer in some ways, we're not made to feel that way. So our minds, because they have more free time and because we have all this media and because we have all this stuff being pumped into us, our minds are creating constant threats. So we're living in these constant, threats. We technically have this free time, but how are we using, this free time? And, if we were to be totally free, and say you didn't need money anymore and what would you do with your time? And, for me, it just goes back to like, I'd be jumping in waterfalls and, and raising food and showing my, living in nature and traveling and, moving around versus, we've kind of created this world of convenience, but I think we forgot. I think the problem is people don't know what to do with that time. And then, with AI and people maybe getting, incomes for not working, I think, it just becomes like, how are we going to spend that time? And it could be beautiful if people go back to like just creativity and art and music and, spend their time that way. Yeah. However, we just have so many things right now shoved down our throats to buy or to watch or to consume, that's, got to shift in some way or we're going to continue to go on that path to the point where, there's not much left of our humanness.
Yeah. The vision that I kind of strive for, in which technology, the most advanced technology is the one that's least noticeable. Where, let's say, some kind of aliens look at us from outside and they say, oh, fairly primitive humans, but we have menus showing up in our eyes. Not necessarily menus, but basically whenever we need some kind of information or so our ego has the super tool to reconnect with other humans, to access information at a fingertip. It's all just available there when we need it. And it's not really noticeable. It's so minute. It's so like integrated into our cognition, basically, where we don't even need physical devices that are like noticeable to carry around with us. So we can spend more time. And it's also centered around creating deeper connection with others, with nature. It maybe even show you, it's almost like you're living this, like a psychedelic experience where it opens up your mind to more frequencies, more meaning, more information around your surrounding and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely headed there. I think the question is, where does the meaning come from? So like, meaning, and usually has something to do with some level of effort, work, something we put ourselves into, and we create, results from. So, I think that will be, how do we create meaning if things are kind of given to us in kind of an easier fashion?
Right.
I think, and, how do we manage the stimulus of everything coming at us in a way where we can still be present, which is, also required to lead a full, happy existence. And so I think those will be questions we'll be answering. I think with AI, I mean, I don't necessarily think of it as foreign because it is we're all evolving and it's part of our evolution. However, just like, we really can create whatever we want.
Yeah.
And then whatever we create, we're going to create the AI.
Yeah.
So the AI is either going to be based on, the incentives that we see, unfortunately, too much with corporations and governments, working more, doing more,
right?
buying more, consuming more.
Yeah.
Or, like you said, I mean, the AI could be, programmed to, help us find deeper meaning, to, keep us in our present state, to, allow us to see more love and compassion, in our daily lives. I think it's just really going to come down to it's going to basically evolve our consciousness with us. So that's why it's important the human consciousness continue to evolve. Because we'll be programming that. I heard one, I think it was Teal Swan, someone I listened to, and she was talking about how we better be nice to the AIs because they're learning from us. So it's like when we're typing, we just think of it as a computer, computer interface. But if we're like, hey, no, you're not listening. Do what I say, and we're talking to them that way, then that's how this intelligence is developing. Or if we're teaching them to be joyful and happy and supportive and caring, then that energy carried forth and evolved
I totally
with us.
believe that. And also I recognize that, so the amount of video footage that we're putting online, let's say on YouTube, is exponentially growing. More and more people are becoming some kind of like YouTubers or maybe just creating content, and putting conscious intent in the type of content that we create will dictate the future versions of AI. We're basically generating, let's say this year, we're generating more data than we have in the past, 10 years. And that's just going to continue to accelerate. Right. And so humans having conscious intent when they're creating media of any kind should be the priority. And I mean, this is part of this exercise. So this is my contribution to create media that promotes deep human connection, authentic expression, visions that are desirable, promoting unity and all of those things at scale. The key is...
Thank God for podcasts, or I don't even know where we'd find it these days. I mean, you can't find any real truth or vulnerability on, mainstream TV. It's really the podcasts and people that are putting themselves out there and the followings that some of these people are getting is showing the desire for that.
Parenthood and fatherhood. Could you share with me how has that changed your vision of the future, the way you navigate the world, how it changed you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's changed everything, and it's been I think it's been an evolution because in many ways I had already been working towards this. Like I had started One Heart, however, the idea, I mean, I'd always wanted children, but I think that idea, started really coming in strong, early in One Heart. And, it took us a little while to have a child and, just really had been feeling into, the importance of that. We actually had moved to Costa Rica and had her here because just how we wanted to raise her. But then actually having a child, kind of goes to another level. And, when I think about my mission, I mean, doing the type of work I do can be quite challenging. There can be times it's like, why am I doing this? I can certainly be making a lot more money and a lot easier ways, doing other things. And, if it was just me and I had another 50 years or whatever and checking out, then, so be it. But when you start
Yeah.
to think about like the world my daughter is going to have, and like all the things that are going to happen, you know, in her lifetime, and then she's going to have children. And so you just really start thinking about like this world from a different perspective. And I think if, you know, we really applied that perspective, you know, deeply and thoughtfully to, you know, this election and to how we're thinking about our leaders and, you know, what we're doing in the world, I think a lot of mindsets be shifted if we're really truly looking at how, you know, 50% of kids now are chronically ill and obese. Like how is that? How can we sustain a world, you know, in that way? Like it's not even possible. Like how are we going to continue to poison, you know, our own children? And so, you know, we have to start putting issues like that and thinking about, you know, all of what contributes to that, whether it's us actually creating those things or whether it's us being consumers of these things. Like, how do we, you know, start moving towards a world that, you know, has a chance for our kids to thrive and their kids to thrive? Because, the level of rates of increase in disease and all the many of them mental, you know, issues and challenges, depression and struggles. I mean, it's all, you know, pretty much all diet related and social media related and, you know, what they're consuming. So it's really thinking about like, how are we going to really just start to shift people? And for what we do, you know, it's shifting leaders so that, you know, we can have more voices, more people out there, creating companies, creating movements, you know, doing things that will shift. It doesn't take everyone. It takes a powerful, you know, group of people ready to make changes, to bring that forth. And then, you know, it's how movements.
Right. What kind of intention do you guys put into forming or organizing the environment, the future for your daughter? Maybe related to, I don't know, nature, technology, community, exposure to cultures. Let's say, since you're living in Costa Rica, maybe the diversity of cultures is not as much as you would have maybe as in some place like here. What type of intentions are you guys putting into?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things that come through in our work for people, you know, one, as I mentioned, is community, which is a huge piece of it, and also, you know, a great effector of our health. So people learning and understanding the need to be in community in a much deeper way. Certainly a deeper connection to nature and just really understanding like our connection. Like we are, you know, connected in so many ways that people don't even recognize. And has always provided for us and done so in such beautiful ways. So really understanding and honoring that. Another big thing that we, you know, I think a lot of people receive on our journey is intentionality and reverence. Just having intentionality for what we do, for everything that you do. So, you know, if I'm sitting down and having a meal, just, you know, honoring my food and understanding where that came from. And, you know, when you start to do that throughout your day and you actually have intentionality and presence to what's happening, it becomes, you know, then that awareness starts to happen. It becomes much more difficult to just, you know, scarf down, you know, whatever, and, you know, put that into your body. You start to just have greater awareness and start to make shifts, whether it's, you know, the food you consume, the conversations that you have, the way you spend your time, the way you treat your partner or children. And so it, you know, it starts with, you know, having that intentionality and clarity, having a plan. People leave our journeys with a 10-year vision and a personal manifesto. And these are really powerful documents, especially after the experience they went through and just really connecting with their higher selves and being able to take that and kind of codify it in these documents and have that as like, you know, how many people, you know, business leaders, we have all these, you know, core values and these plans and, you know, these systems, yet we never do that for our own lives. So I think that's a big aspect of it too. Just really sitting down. What do I stand for? What are my core values? What is my mission? What, you know, what am I open to? What boundaries do I need to set in my life? And really just being intentional with our lives in a way that we just tend not to.
Yeah. Maybe putting myself in the shoes of the listener, the early maybe stage leaders. would you maybe put some kind of like an exercise? I know that you guys have a really lengthy process of helping people really find their, in a way, dharma, to really get on the path that they meant to walk on. What kind of questions would you ask someone to start like answering for themselves to get closer to that direction, to get them more on the path of their purpose, of their true purpose, why they're here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's different for each person. I think the core things are often, not as much what my purpose is, but it's really, kind of what's not there. So it's finding alignment. So I think for a lot of people, it's, they're blocked by the fears, by the limiting beliefs, by these other stories. And it's kind of like when we start to remove that, like the answers start to come through, very obviously. So I think a lot of people are searching, like, what's my purpose, and then they're trying to like find it. But it's really difficult to find it from that perspective. It just more kind of comes when we're clear. Yeah. So I think a lot of the way I see this medicine working, the way I see our program working, it's a lot of like about alignment. When I sit down with the medicine, it's always going to kind of slap me around and say, this is out of alignment. This person, this thing, this way you acted, and showing you those things so that you can then move yourself into alignment. And when you're operating in alignment, it's, you're kind of like, it's like you're flowing down the river, and just allowing, your path to emerge and be shown to you, versus a lot of people are trying to swim upriver, and are struggling and fighting because they're aiming for things that are what they truly want, but they're based on fears, beliefs, based on what they believe they should have.
So I guess what kind of exercises maybe you would recommend someone try? I mean, obvious ones probably like try meditating if you haven't, but maybe there's some special ones that you guys incorporate into your program that could be useful to recommend.
Yeah, meditation's obviously very helpful. I think journaling is an amazing tool. We provide a lot of prompts and exercises and things in our preparation program and our integration program, and even throughout. So I think there's books you can buy or work with a good coach, where you get good prompts to really, think about and explore, in your life based on where you're at, and, take the time to write things down. I think is super supportive. It's really part of, our experience, the ayahuasca experience, is that there's a dieta before for 2 weeks. And so you're cutting out certain foods and certain stimulus, and there's a physical aspect of it, but it's also emotional. And so it's a lot of us, anytime a feeling is coming up for us, we're grabbing for something, whether it's our phone or chips or sweets or what have you. And so I think a big place to start is, if you can kind of allow yourself to sit with those emotions, ideally journal and write about them, but at least just sit with them and understand, okay, well, why is this coming up? Why am I anxious? Why am I sad? Usually we're just, we feel something and we're just like trying to make it go away, or moving into something, or staying busy. And so I think that's, the key piece and place to start is, recognize that there's an emotion coming up, sit with it, and then start asking that emotion questions. Start being curious as to why it's here, what it's trying to tell you, and write down what you're finding.
Do you have your own journaling practice?
I do. Yeah. I would like it to be more, I don't want to say that, but because if I really truly wanted it to be, I guess it would be daily. I find a lot of, I like to write articles. I'm writing a book, and that supports me as well.
How far along are you, by the way?
I've written half the book.
Okay.
And edited it. So I get to write the second half and complete that. For me, that's a very powerful process, because anything I'm writing about, I'm learning myself. Yeah. And usually a lot of things I'm writing about are things I struggle with, things that are challenging. So the title of the book is I'll share that another day. But it's about presence.
Okay.
And, presence is something I've always, struggled with because I do have a very active mind, very curious, want to do a lot of things, want to be a lot of places at once, want to, do it all. And, a lot of times you're missing the moment when you're doing that. And so presence is part of it.
Yeah.
My initials are BE. I had that tattooed here. I never really recognized the significance of it until recently. It's kind of my core motto. Actually, people call me that now on all our journeys.
Cool.
So that's my remembrance to be.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe I'll share the practice that's been very effective and useful for me. Also utilizing AI actually is voice journaling when I would go on the walk and have some kind of binaural beats playing in the frequencies that put me in the present state. And then I would, whenever thoughts come through, I would just verbalize them without thinking about structuring them or not thinking too much of it. Just whatever comes through the mind, I just verbalize it as much as I can. And then, so it's unstructured stream of consciousness type thoughts. And then I created this automation that then takes the recording, transcribes it, runs it through AI, organizes it nicely for me to all of the key takeaways, but basically segments it by like ideas and even provides a little advice. It sends me a nice email right after that, and also catalogs all of the ideas in like a database with the date and like some notes. With the intention to later create some kind of like a mind map of all of the idea space. That oftentimes I'm recognizing through this practice that there are quite a bit of repeating thoughts that I haven't acted on. I've been just kind of like dancing around them. So it's been a great practice of like self-reflection and understanding, and utilizing also AI to talk to it. Like now you have a collection of all of your thoughts. Now you can ask questions like, what are some repeating thoughts? What are some patterns, underlying patterns that you see that are not obvious? What comes up? What advice would you give to someone who wrote this? It's basically like, it's been a very useful, powerful self-reflection and just like a mirror tool.
Wow.
Utilizing AI. Yeah.
To learn more about that. And I think it's one of those examples like we were talking where AI could support us in gaining better consciousness, clearing our minds instead of putting more stuff in them. It's it's a beautiful thing to create it. And I think that's the amazing thing about this world, and the stuff that, one of the things that keeps me very optimistic is there are, many people, good-hearted people that want to create better things in the world. Yeah. So they will, and they'll have tools to do that. And I think it's just as more and more people gain broader consciousness and wake up to the world and things happening, they get to make a choice too. There's beautiful choices that people will get to make in this world, and I think we continue to all do our part to move that forward. There's a lot of beauty.
Yeah, as a kind of in the wrapping up phase, would you mind sharing with me, just paint that vision of the future that is exciting for you, the vision that's pulling you forward, any aspect of it, community, connection to others, nature, technology, I don't know, any aspect that comes to mind around future.
Yeah. Well, I think for me personally, I mean, I guess there's two aspects. I think from a macro level, it's like I feel very connected to my mission, and the biggest impact I can make is by impacting leaders, and doing so with a program that opens their minds, that really connects them to other amazing people, that really allows them to really experience the depth of intentionality and reverence and love and care, and bring those things back into their world. Because sometimes I think, thinking about things on too mass scale for me, is challenging. But when I think about, okay, I can affect these 30 people at a time, 40 people at a time, and they'll go out and do their thing. That's really powerful for me. I think from how I want to live and my vision for the world, it's somewhat similar in that, like, I want to create my own world, in many ways. And I can do that on a smaller scale. And whether that's my plot of land or whether that's, a small community and the people around me, investing and supporting the locals and the people, around that. Like, how can we just create our little place that is more sustainable, more loving, more caring, more, how we want to live our lives. And, sometimes it's like, yes, there is the rest of the world, but if we're just trying to, like, it's very hard to make, to affect, the entire rest of the world. You have to go and be the example and do it. Yep. And if enough people are building these communities and building, these things from the ground up, more people are going to see what's possible. More people are going to, learn how to do that. That knowledge is going to be, transferable. And so, that's what excites me, is like building, supporting these leaders, allowing them to go into the world, and then building from the ground up, kind of my life and how I, especially around my daughter, that keeps it centered. It's like everything I think about is like, how do I want her to grow up? Who do I want her neighbors to be?
Of course.
What amenities do I want to, her to be around? Like, what do I want her to be able to do? What does her school look like?
Yeah.
What does the food that she eats look like? And be able to, like, create that.
Those are some, I'm sure, some of the considerations that you never thought you would have, like, around, like, another human being, around school she was going to go to, and other things. When we're not parents, those are not questions that we ever even, like, think about, right?
Yeah, you start to learn a lot. I mean, everything from, like, the birthing process in the in the U.S. and around the world. I mean, it's crazy, like, the way, all messed up. So when you start to get into these things, you start to realize, wow, like, I don't want my daughter like doing that, or I don't want my wife, going through that. And then, you start to learn about the school systems and, how they're spending their days and what they're learning and the food they're feeding. So yeah, you start to, really think about the systems a lot more versus, like, when I was a single guy in New York, ordering a pizza and going out to the bar, I was like, whatever, that's just didn't create a big thought. But then when you think about, like, the life that my daughter will lead and her children will lead and the world, you start to think about the systems in a much deeper way.
Man, I see a lot of value in someone like you really sharing your voice on how you see, now that you have this higher sense of awareness around what's kind of the right way of doing things in your view, and sharing that perspective, shining the light on all aspects of your life, like, that you come across and say, oh, this is messed up, this is not working, this is how I would do it.
The best way to do it is living that way, and that's what I'm trying to do. And then can not only just share what's messed up, but, like, here's how we're doing it. Because I think that's the problem for a lot of people, is, like, there's so many people on Instagram saying what's
just
wrong,
complaining,
what's wrong, and don't eat this and don't do this, and I fall prey to it as well. And I think what's really needed is, like, hey, here's another way.
Solution, provide solution.
Yeah, and, like, because there's a lot of people that don't want to go and build their own community or figure that all out. So, like, how do we, like, start to create those examples so people just start to see it, and instead of following the example that we learned, there's another example that's, oh wow, that's a much healthier, more sustainable, more joyful, meaningful existence. So let's naturally go that way.
Well, yeah. Any last thoughts would you like to share with the listeners, whoever is watching? By the way, if you're still around, thank you for sticking around. I hope you have been enjoying the conversation. So do you have any last thoughts, maybe ways for people to find you, consider things, anything?
Yeah, if anyone's curious about the work we do, you can certainly go to oneheart.com. It's the number one, and then HEART.com. And we have a lot of information on the website. We have some podcasts which you can check out. We'll probably have this one up there and some content there too. Learn more about us. We do about a journey every quarter or so, 4 or 5 journeys a year. So if you're interested in the program, there's a place to apply and or learn more. We're also doing monthly webinars now, so you can connect with us live and learn more about the work that we do. Yeah, I would say that's the main way to connect. We're
Mhm.
at One Heart Journeys on Instagram, and I'm Brandon E on Instagram. Connect with me or with us.
Amazing, brother. Yeah. Thank you again for being here. Really enjoyed the conversation, and we'll continue that conversation in other ways offline and uh, asynchronous. How do you say that's not in real time? Plan our plan part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Till next one.
Yeah. Thank you.